Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we will tackle about values of literature. But before we go deep down to it, let us first define what is values of literature. So the phrase values of literature refers to those qualities of poems, stories, novels, and etc. that make them worthwhile to read. If we feel our time reading is well spent, we can say that a work has value for us. If reading the work was a complete waste, then we might say it has no value for us. And there is a spectrum between the two extremes. Of course, if you simply do not like or love reading, then you really have no say in the matter, right? So what is there to value? Okay, a work of literature can be valuable in several ways. We have 8 kinds of values of literature. First, we have entertainment value, political value, artistic value, cultural value, historical value, philosophical value, moral value, and ethical value. And now let us first discuss what is entertainment value. So entertainment value is an enjoyable way to pass the time. This type of value is inherently subjective because not everyone will enjoy the same kinds of stories, styles, or themes. Being entertained is important, but being bored does not give anyone a license to reject the work outright. So I can put the book down and not read it anymore. But I should be careful not to assume that my boredom is somehow a characteristics of the work I have tried to read. So this entertainment value is somehow or somewhat the literature of the work of the author is entertaining us readers while reading these works. So let us move on to political value. Political value. This political value gives occasion to change how a person thinks or acts. Reading a work can jolt someone into action. It can reveal an injustice, outrage its readers, give voice to the oppressed, and ridicule to those corrupt, and etc. So the main idea here is to think about what is the work of literature is trying to do. It has a political value if it attempts to persuade us or people in the world to start acting and thinking in this way. So these works of literature is somehow persuading us to ban our not good everyday living. This work is persuading us to think about good ideas of these political issues, to have concerns in the community. This persuading us to act like this way, and somehow they train us to do good in everyday. So that's how good the literature is. So let's move on. We can see that the political leanings of a work without necessarily being persuaded ourselves. Okay, let's move on to cultural value. So this cultural value gives occasion to think about the place and time of the author at the time the work was written. So it cares about what is happening in the world around them and their experiences in their time, in their life also, that shape their attitude towards values towards various issues in their society, in their time. If their work addresses the attitudes, the customs, and values of their time, then the work has a cultural value. Okay, let's move on to this artistic value. This artistic value gives us occasion to contemplate the nature of beauty and human creativity. There are many works of literature that experiment with the limits of language and its expressive power. So if I like how the words can be manipulated to create beautiful works of art, then a work has tries to use words that way in a unique way or in a new way. They will have this what we call this artistic value. So let's move on to historical value. This historical value gives us occasion to think about the past, how things changes over time, and how the world has evolved to what it is today. So some things might be worth reliving, and we might regret some of the history we have left behind. But other things we want to avoid is repeating this history. So works of literature help us to learn about the past, process the past, and use this past to our advantages. So sometimes the historical value of a work is that it shows us what we have gained and what we have lost. So that's the most important of the two. The historical value, what we have gained from the past and what we have lost and what is there in the future for tomorrow. Moral value. It gives occasion to learn a lesson. If a story or poem teaches us how to live or attempts to teach us, then it has a moral dimension. If we reduce a poem to a moral lesson or require a story or poem to have a moral or lesson that we can endorse, that the author endorsed to us readers, and as readers, we readers endorse this and or share this to others, then it has a moral dimension or moral value. Then we are using this literature to back up our own beliefs. We must appreciate works of literature for its various kinds of value. Okay, let's move on to ethical value. So this ethical value gives occasion to think about ethical questions. If a story dramatizes conflicts and or dilemmas, it is not necessarily teaching us how to live, but it encourages us to contemplate the codes that the characters live by. If a person or if a poem or if a story has a speaker who promotes a particular worldview or seems conflicted about the world he lives in, the reader can try to look, the reader, we, us, the reader can try to look through the eyes of that speaker and see what he or she sees from it. And that's the 8 kinds of values. So let us recall. So entertainment value, political value, artistic value, cultural value, historical value, philosophical value, moral value, and ethical value. Okay. I have one question here that I think will trigger your mind. And this is the question: does any literature have no value? Does any literature have no value? It's hard to say. Why? Because there is certainly some of that literature that has no value for me. That's for me. If I could somehow obtain evidence that no one who had ever read that particular work gained anything from it, I might I might be able to argue that the work has no value. But then I would rather also have to argue that no one who might read it in the future would get anything from it either. And I cannot see it beyond it now. Yes, we can appreciate this literature of these works of authors from different nations in the negative way. We can decide that it holds a little to no value for us, ethically speaking. Before we accept or reject a work of literature based on its ethical value for you, you must first actually measure that value. So I think that should be all for this episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you.